If your tomatoes collapse every hot afternoon and watering them again doesn't seem to help, you're not doing anything wrong. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to tell a thirsty plant from one that's just riding out the heat. Last summer, I watered mine at noon, right after the leaves went limp, and 10 minutes later, they looked exactly the same. Still hanging, still soft, like the water had done nothing at all. So I did what felt obvious. I grabbed the hose again. That second round didn't fix anything either. By evening, the lower leaves on that plant were still drooping, and I remember standing there thinking I'd somehow made things worse by trying to help. Most gardeners hit this exact moment at some point. The plant looks fine in the morning. By early afternoon, it's collapsed, leaves down, stems soft, like the whole thing is dying. And because it looks like an emergency, you treat it like one, sometimes watering twice or 3 times before the sun even starts to drop. Daytime wilting doesn't automatically mean a tomato plant needs more water. The soil underneath is often already plenty moist, and extra watering isn't solving a problem, it's adding to one. Before reaching for the hose a second time, push a finger 2 inches into the soil near the base of the plant. If it comes back moist, more water isn't the answer. That plant I overwatered that day didn't bounce back quickly either. The leaves stayed down longer than they should have. By the time evening came, the lower half of the plant still looked tired, and the soil on top was now soggy on top of roots that were already stressed from the heat. Waterlogged and heat-stressed at the same time is a rough combination for a root system to handle. So here's the actual first move, and it takes less than a minute. Stop watering a second time until you've checked the soil yourself. Push a finger, or a simple soil probe, about 2 inches down near the root zone, not just at the surface, because surface soil dries out fast in heat and tells you almost nothing about what the roots are getting. Then leave the plant alone until evening. Once the sun starts dropping, look again. How fast the plant recovers after sunset is the single most useful piece of information you'll get all day. If the soil was moist and the plant is standing upright again by nightfall, you didn't do anything wrong by waiting. That's a good sign, not a bad one. It means the plant was managing the heat exactly the way it's built to. Think of it the way you'd think about a person walking outside on the hottest afternoon of the year. Nobody collapses the instant the sun hits them. The body adjusts, slows down, finds shade, even before it's actually short on water. Tomatoes do something similar. Gardeners call it leaf roll, and it's simply the plant temporarily drooping its leaves to cut water loss. It's reversible. Once the evening cools things off, a healthy plant usually stands back up on its own. You'll notice peppers and eggplants do something similar, although they often recover more slowly than tomatoes do. Once you know the soil actually needs water, timing and depth start to matter more than how often you do it. Morning is usually the best time to water, since it gives the water more time to soak into the root zone before it evaporates in the heat of the day. But if a plant is genuinely dry during a heat wave, it's better to water than to let it keep drying out, whatever time it is. Go deep instead of frequent. One deep soak that reaches 6 to 8 inches down does more for the plant than 3 shallow waterings that never make it past the top inch of soil. As a rough guide, aim for somewhere around 1 to 2 inches of water a week, adjusted upward during extreme heat, though there's no single number that fits every garden. It depends on your soil type, whether you're working with containers or in-ground beds, and how brutal the heat has actually been that week. Containers add a wrinkle in-ground beds don't have. A pot sitting in full sun heats up on all sides, not just the top, so the soil inside can run noticeably hotter than a garden bed even when the air temperature is identical. That extra heat at the roots means container tomatoes often wilt sooner and stay droopy longer than the same variety planted in the ground a few feet away. Moving containers into afternoon shade, or grouping pots together so they shade each other's sides, cuts down on that extra root heat without changing how much water you're giving the plant. Try to keep water off the foliage during the hottest part of the day. Wet leaves don't help the plant cool down, and if foliage stays wet for long stretches, it can encourage disease on top of whatever heat stress is already going on. Straw and shredded leaves are my go-to, since they keep the soil cooler and slow evaporation so the water you already gave the plant sticks around longer. Just keep the mulch pulled back an inch or two from the actual stem, because mulch piled directly against it invites rot. During an extreme heat spike, temporary shade can take real pressure off a struggling plant, though it's not something you want up all the time. Shade cloth in the 30 to 50% range is the standard recommendation, cutting down the intensity without blocking so much light that flowering and fruit production suffer. An old bedsheet draped over stakes works in a pinch if you don't have shade cloth sitting around. Put it up from late morning through mid-afternoon, the window when heat stress actually peaks, and take it back down once temperatures start easing off. Leave shade up permanently and you'll run into a different problem. Tomatoes still need several hours of direct sun every day to keep flowering and setting fruit, so shade is a heat wave tool, not a default setup you leave standing all season. Most daytime wilting sorts itself out without any drama. But there are a few signs worth paying attention to, because they point to something beyond ordinary heat stress. If a plant is still wilted well after sunset, once the air has actually cooled down, that's no longer the normal daytime response, and it's worth a closer look. New growth coming in twisted or stunted, rather than just drooping temporarily, is another sign. So is a growing tip that stays limp for an extended stretch rather than perking back up within an hour or two of the temperature dropping. Flowers dropping in large numbers is its own heat effect, and it's worth understanding on its own terms. Once daytime temperatures push consistently above roughly 90 degrees, especially with warm nights that don't cool down much either, tomato flowers often fail to pollinate properly and abort before they ever set fruit. It's frustrating to watch happen, but it's usually temporary. Plants typically start setting fruit again once temperatures ease back into a more comfortable range. Even tiny developing tomatoes can stop growing for the same reason, until the weather cools down and pollen starts working properly again. None of these signs mean you did something wrong with your watering. They mean the heat wave itself is the actual problem, and no amount of adjusting your watering schedule is going to override what extreme temperatures are doing to pollination and fruit set. Here's the layer that reframes the whole thing, and it's the part I wish someone had told me the day I stood there with a hose in my hand watching those leaves stay down. The plant wasn't failing. It was protecting itself, sacrificing its upright posture in the middle of the day to save water for the hours that actually matter. Watering it a second time didn't help that along. It just added a second stress on top of a plant that was already handling the first one just fine on its own. That reframes almost everything about how I read a wilted plant now. The leaves going down at 2 in the afternoon aren't a distress signal. They're the plant doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The actual distress signal is a plant that's still down at 9 at night, after the temperature has dropped and the sun's been gone for hours. That's the one worth acting on. The one at 2 in the afternoon is just biology working as intended. So the whole approach comes down to this. Check the soil before you touch the hose a second time. Let the plant ride out the hottest hours instead of fighting them. Watch how it looks after sunset, because that tells you more than anything you'll see at noon. And only then decide whether it actually needs water, shade, or just a little patience. If this helped you avoid overwatering your tomatoes today, hit like and subscribe so the next one lands in your feed. Share it with another gardener fighting the same heat wave, and tell me in the comments which of your vegetables took the hardest hit last time and what actually helped it come back.